11 minutes into the biggest game of his life, Ben Danford made the mistake that was supposed to define him. Game 1 of the Calder Cup Final. Chicago. A building full of people watching a 20-year-old defenseman who had never played a single professional regular season game because he had been called up straight into a championship run. He turned the puck over. Chicago moved it the other way. Bradley Nadeau put it in the net, and the Wolves led. One favor, and it is the only thing I will ask for. The oldest rivalry in hockey is currently being settled in subscriber counts instead of standings, because I run the Montreal channel too. Put Toronto ahead. Subscribe, nothing else. That is the moment, not the goal everybody clipped afterward. This one. Because what a young defenseman does in the 6 minutes after a turnover in a final is the entire scouting question, compressed into 6 minutes, and there is no way to fake the answer. 6 minutes and change later, at 17:45 of the first period, Ben Danford scored the first professional goal of his life. Vinny Lettieri and Bo Gruel got the assists. The Marlies won the game 4-2. 7 days later, they closed the series out 4-1, and Danford, a player with no professional regular season behind him at all, was lifting a Calder Cup. His head coach, John Gruden, was asked about it after the game, and the answer was not about the goal. If you're going to play hockey at this level and the next level, you need a short memory. He definitely had it. Pretty impressive. Short memory, hold on to that phrase, because it is the actual subject of this video, and it is worth more to Ben Danford's career than the goal was. Here is why the sequence matters more than the score sheet. A defenseman's job is almost entirely invisible when it goes right. Nobody clips a good gap. Nobody replays a stick lifted at the blue line, or a puck moved cleanly to the strong side winger under forecheck pressure. The entire craft is negative space. The goals that did not happen. Which means a defenseman only ever appears on television in 2 situations, when he scores and when he loses the puck. That is a brutal deal. It means the public record of a defensive defenseman is a list of his worst moments with none of his best ones attached. And it means the mental skill the job actually requires is not confidence. It is amnesia, the ability to make an error that ends up on a highlight package and then take the next shift as though it never occurred. Most 20-year-olds cannot do it. They shorten up. They stop making the first pass and start rimming the puck around the boards, because a rim cannot be intercepted for a goal against, and a pass can. Coaches can see it happening in real time, and it is one of the most common reasons a prospect's development stalls without anybody ever writing down what went wrong. Danford did the opposite. He kept the puck on his stick and joined the rush, on a night when the safest thing available to him was to disappear for 40 minutes. Now put that against the profile Toronto drafted, because they took him 31st overall in 2024, and the numbers behind that pick look strange until you understand what they were buying. 3 full junior seasons with the Oshawa Generals, 10 goals, total. 63 games as a rookie, 4 goals, 17 assists. The next year, 64 games, 1 goal, 32 assists. Then, in 2024-25, Oshawa named him captain at 18 years old, 5 goals, 20 assists in 61 games, and a place on the Ontario Hockey League's 3rd All-Star team. In a sport that has spent 15 years chasing defensemen who quarterback power plays and score 60 points, 10 goals in 3 seasons is supposed to disqualify you from the first round. So ask the question directly. What does a team see in a defenseman who does not score? Tell me in the comments before I answer it. When you watch a defenseman play, what are you actually looking at? Most people say, he's solid, and cannot explain the evidence. I want to know what you look for. The answer has 3 parts, and they are all things that do not show up in a box score. The first is the shot he handles. Danford is 6'2", 200 pounds, and he was voted the best shot blocker in the Eastern Conference by opposing coaches. Blocking shots is not bravery. It is timing and angle. Getting it wrong means a deflection into your own net or a bone in your foot. The second is the hand he shoots with. Danford is a right-shot defenseman, and right-shot defensemen are the scarcest commodity in professional hockey. Roughly 2/3 of all defensemen shoot left, but every team needs to fill 3 right-side slots. The arithmetic never balances, which is why right-shot defensemen get drafted earlier and paid more than left-shot defensemen with identical production. Part of Danford's draft position is simply which hand he holds low on the stick. The third is the one this game measured: composure under a mistake. That is what makes his 2025-26 season worth describing in the order it happened, because it is not the normal order. He played junior hockey for the Brantford Bulldogs. He wore the maple leaf for Canada at the World Junior Championship in Minnesota. And then he finished the same season as a professional, going directly into a championship run without a single regular season game in between. Players do not usually debut as pros in the playoffs. They do not usually score a first professional goal in a final. And they very rarely win the whole thing on the way in. Danford did all 3 inside about 6 months, at 20. Now the case against, because it deserves saying plainly. 12 postseason games and 3 points is a small body of work, and 1 goal in a final is 1 goal. Junior production does matter. Most defensemen who cannot score at 19 also cannot score at 25. And the National Hockey League is a faster league than any Danford has played in. Every part of his game that works depends on reading plays a step early, and that read gets harder at every level. Plenty of prospects have arrived with exactly this profile, and topped out as a third-pair defenseman who is fine and never more than fine. Toronto also does not need him to be more than that immediately, which is a real risk of its own. Organizations rush players into holes. But here is the argument on the other side, and it is narrow on purpose. Everything Danford is bad at, he can get better at. Foot speed improves. Shot velocity improves. Reading the professional game improves with reps and nothing else. The thing he demonstrated on the 12th of June is the one that does not improve, because it is not a skill. It is a temperament. You either take the next shift after the turnover or you do not. Coaches spend entire careers trying to install that in players, and mostly fail, which is precisely why Gruden reached for it instead of the goal when a microphone was put in front of him. Toronto drafted a defenseman to prevent goals. In the first game of a championship final, he was directly responsible for one, and then he answered it himself before the period was over. That is the tape, not the celebration, the 11 minutes before it. Let me give you my own take here, because the coverage of that night irritated me, and I would rather say so than pretend to be neutral about it. Every outlet clipped the goal. The goal is the least interesting thing that happened to Ben Danford that night. The interesting thing happened 11 minutes in, when a 20-year-old who had never played a professional regular season game handed a championship final to the other team, and then had to decide immediately, in a hostile building, with no time to think about it, what kind of player he was going to be about that. And this is the part I will actually defend. I do not believe that can be taught. I think coaches say it can because the alternative, that it is mostly settled by the time they get him, makes their job sound smaller than it is. So if you handed me Toronto's defense prospects ranked by points, I would move Danford up that list, not because of the goal, because of what those 6 minutes suggest about the 28th minute of a game 5 years from now, when nobody is filming a feel-good story. So, here is what I want from you. Forget the goal for a second. If you were running Toronto's development staff and you had to grade Ben Danford on that one period alone, what grade does he get, and why? Tell me below, and tell me whether you think short memory can be taught or only found. I read the comments on every one of these.